Hi there. So in this video, we are going to set up the keyboard inputs for our Revenant character because currently we can't really move. So that's what we are going to focus on. Before doing that, I think it's better if we just move this controller to the blueprints folder. So let's do that. I'm going to put it into its own folder. So I'm going to move it to blueprints. It should move here. I'm going to right click, create a new folder called controller. All of our controllers can be in here. But for this project, we are just going to have one, but it's a good practice to set it up like this because we will then, it helps us to stay organized. So we are going to set up some input, and in order to do that, let's see, controller, I'm going to create another folder here called input to stay organized. We need an input mapping context, so let's see if I can find it. An input mapping context. I'm gonna call it AMC Revenant. And before opening this up, I can just double click on it, but we need more inputs. Let's see, input action, we need input actions. I'm gonna call it move. Let's open this up. And we could make this an axis 2D, two-dimensional input. I'm gonna save this, so we will get a two-dimensional input here, one for horizontal and vertical axis. This helps us to implement moving for our character, and you will see how this will be used. But what we need to do now is to register this input action in our input mapping context. So I'm gonna click on move and expand this and make sure to click on click on this button so it becomes orange, click on the W, and then you can click on the plus because we are going to add more to this, and the S key, click the plus, the A key, and the plus for the D key. So how are we going to do this? Well, if you expand this, you can see that for the W we don't have any triggers and modifiers, and by default we are moving in the x-axis, which is forward. So for this one we don't need to do anything, we don't need to do any changes in here. However, for the S button it will really be the opposite of W, so we need to add a modifier to it. A modifier allows us to do different things here really, but what I want to do is to do a negation here. So it's like reversing whatever is happening with W. With W we go forward, but with the S key we will now go backwards instead. So we are negating the input here. And I'm gonna just leave it as it is. Let's leave it like this. And I could actually uncheck one of these, but I'm gonna leave it on for now. So let's move on to the next one. I'm gonna move this up here to stay a little bit more consistent. So for the decay, how are we gonna do that? Well, we're gonna use the y-axis for that. So what I'm gonna do is go to the modifiers, and you have something called swizzle input. Let's see if we can find swizzle input axis values. We want to go, by default is X first. So in this case, I want this input to, by default, go to the Y-axis. So this is how you do it. With the D key, I want to move in the Y-axis. So you have to swizzle the inputs so it has the Y letter first here. And doing this, which means that if I click on the D now, I will move to the right by default. And I think you by now should maybe know how to do the A key. So I'm gonna give you this as a challenge, a mini challenge if you want to. So please pause the video and give this a try. See if you can implement A key. So what you need to think of is that you need the input to go to the y-axis, and you might need to also reverse it, right? So pause the video and try this now. Okay, hopefully you did well. So as mentioned, let's go to the A key here. We need to swizzle the inputs, just like above. And we also need to negate it, because I want to go the other direction, as you can see here. So I think we are good for now with this, and so I'm gonna just compile and save, and let's see if we can implement this. So I'm gonna go to the controller and open this up, because we are gonna register this in the controller. Let's search for, I'm gonna search for enhanced register input mapping context. So let's see if we can, let's get the player. We really need to get access to player control, which we already have. Let's see, get enhanced. Let's see if I can find it. Yeah, it's this one. So if you right click and search for enhanced, it has something called get enhanced input local player subsystem, a long name here, but really it's the subsystem we need to access. And via this, we can register our input mapping context. So let's do, let's see, let's do the, let's see if I can just, let's see if we can fix this register. Let's see if I can. We need to set it somehow, and we can do that by let's see if we can. Let's see if I can do an add mapping context. Let's try this out. Priority 0, and we can select that one. So you can search for add mapping context, and you should find it. And this allows us to register this input mapping context. So let's see if we can. Let's see if we can read input action. If you search for input action and then move, because we named it move, if you recall, we created here. We created an input action move, and you can see that we are getting these values from it. And what we need to do here is to use this value to move the character. And I believe we are getting some values from this as well. We have a lot of information. And let's see if we can. I'm gonna search for IA. No, not this one. Let's see, action value. I'm gonna break this. There you go. We have the X and Y values. This was what I was looking for. And once this is triggered, I'm gonna do this. We're gonna do an add movement input. Let's see. Oh, maybe we can implement this for the character. I'm just gonna cut this out and go to the Revenant character. I'm gonna move the controller here. I'm gonna go to the event graph. I'm gonna click these buttons here. So for the controller, I just want to register input mapping context, but in here, I'm gonna do an IA move. I'm gonna break this again, and here we can do an add movement input. And let's see how we can do this. All right, let's just connect it here. And these are the values. So for this one, I'm gonna put in X. And I'm gonna get the actor forward vector. And I'm gonna connect it here. I'm just gonna see how this one behaves. All right, as you can see, we can now move forwards and backwards. But we cannot really move left and right. That's too bad. We can't even jump, so we are gonna fix that. But for now, let me just explain what's happening here. So we registered an input action. It's called move, if you recall, and we made sure that it provide us a 2D structure here as the output. Because if you look here, I said axis 2D. It allows us to read, both directions. The horizontal, X is for, horizontal movement, and Y is for, well, the other way around. So forwards and backwards with X, left and right with the Y. So how are we gonna fix this with well, left and right? Well, it's very similar. It's almost similar to this one. So what I'm gonna do is another add movement input. I'm gonna place it here. The actor has a so-called right vector. Get right vector. We're gonna connect the right vector here. And if you don't know what that is, I'm gonna show you very soon. Let me just connect these together so we can test it out. And this is the value, so we need this value. And then I'm gonna connect it like this. All right, compile and save. And now you can see I can run all directions. All right, so far so good. And so really, if you look here, I'm gonna go back to the viewport. I'm gonna select the mesh here. If you look from here, you can see that the forward vector is really the red one. That's the active forward vector. So moving forwards, we're taking advantage of that forward vector and the value that gets input to us through keyboard input. So the forward vector is the red one. That's the standard forward vector in Unreal, and the right vector is the green one. So he's really pointing forwards now, but if you want to run to the right, we are using the right vector. And the z-axis is really the blue one. I call it also the up vector, as you can see here. So really, what we're doing here is, if I just go back to the event graph, we are reading those values, but for the x input, that is for forwards and backwards, I'm adding a movement here to the, well, making use of the forward vector. So using this forward vector, we can add movement, so we move forward. And we are doing a similar thing with the right vector. I'm adding this, I'm using the direction here for the right vector. This is the direction. I'm telling it I want to move to the right, and then we have the scale value here. And this is really how much we want to move. So if I multiply it with a higher value, it will make us to move faster. But I think the default is already good, so I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm gonna keep it as it is. And let's create reroute node like this. So this is really moving forwards, backwards, left and right. And also I think we should maybe increase the size of a target arm length. Let's put a value of 750 and test this out. So we have a little bit more, a bigger area to watch really, and you can see that the character is running around. And some movement works. And let's try one more thing. I think if we go to the BP Revenant, you can search for something called orient rotation to movement, and this is really what it sounds like. It will try to rotate the character based on the direction you want to go. So if you go to the right, he will rotate to the right, and so on. Sometimes this is really useful to use, but it all depends on what you want to achieve. Let's see if I can. There's still some configurations we need to do. I'm gonna keep that on for now. Let's see if we can. Let's see. I'm gonna test this out again. Inherit yaw. Let's see. I'm just checking out the settings here. There is something still that prevent us from orienting to rotation. Let's see how this behaves. All right, let's do this. I'm testing out the settings. I believe we will take a look at this in the next one. Currently, we have configured it so we can move forwards and backwards, left and right, but there is still some work to do. And for the camera settings, I'm not gonna check these boxes. I'm gonna leave them unchecked for now. I'm gonna compile and save. And we will continue with this in the next lecture. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.